for me, I got really lucky because I didn't really do the intentional thing because I didn't know that I was applying to grad school until late. But obviously, the things that are going to look really good to anyone hiring a grad student are going to be things like research experience. And that's also, it's more important, I think, for the purposes of your own understanding of if you do like research and if you do want to do research, just go out there and get research experience. Like that's the biggest thing at MIT. It's like so available, and honestly very well supported from the like individual labs that I've seen. I learned a lot. I learned actually basically how to program from a Europe. Like when I was at Europe, my advisor took a lot of time with me to teach me how to like code embedded C, and that's like where I became like a actual competent software developer. To where like at least that's where like I went from like a person who had done a couple Hello World examples to a person who could like be tasked to write a function, and it would look okay. So that was huge for me. So I think that's really the main thing, like doing that, being proactive in finding research opportunities. And yeah, I mean, I what is nice about grad school is that it's less of the college search where you're trying to just add in all these random extracurriculars. It is a bit more focused, and people who hire you are really more focused on the real kind of important things. But yeah, just make sure that you're familiar with to some degree with what research is, both because you don't want to be signed up for something for 2 to 5 years that you find out you don't actually like at all.
I probably am not the most knowledgeable about the PhD route, but at least for the MEng route, it seemed like the basic thing you want to do is just understand a few things about, there's like some hard requirements, like you need like a certain GPA. I think it was something like 4.25 or something for the CS and physics and math. And I applied at least, I think, in my junior year, at the end of the junior year, to get into the program. But I think as well, it's really important to develop a relationship with at least one advisor through like a Europe, because I think one thing that my friends have found through like doing the MEng at MIT is that even though the program may accept you, just like in any graduate school program, funding is always an issue in terms of you have to make sure that even though you've been accepted to the program, you'd like to obviously work on something and make sure that you have the time to be able to do it. So some people still find time to do TA-ships. RA-ships, I think, are kind of they're good because you don't have to worry so much about if you won't have time to work on your thesis because you're teaching so much. But also RA-ships, they tend to kind of have a little bit more responsibility behind them, and usually a sponsor who kind of needs your involvement. So I think there are different trade-offs, but in general, I think that some of my friends thought that MEng would just kind of be, a full ticket once they get into the program. But I think it's also important, the connections with the advisors is important to foment early on, maybe even during the year ops. I feel like through many year ops, kind of like 2 or 3 that I did, like different semesters with the Aerospace Controls Lab, I got to know like the graduate students, and I think that the graduate students definitely put in good words for me in terms of those programs. Also, I guess when I was kind of a lab assistant for a couple of these robotics classes, I got to know some of the professors pretty well, and I think that they also, in the event that I would have chosen a different advisor, I think they would have been supportive in that as well. So I think, fortunately, I guess, because I knew a few of them, I kind of had some leeway to look at what projects their labs were doing and kind of decide which one of them would have been the best for me. And that's how it ended up working out. But yeah, I think it's doing things like doing well in your classes and then offering to TA and things like that. Those just kind of build your relationships with professors, and that can help you down the road.
So from my freshman year, I always heard people saying like research is good, undergrads should do research. So I tried to get involved in research my freshman year. I started doing some work for a senior project team, and I was basically learning about the robotic swarm system they were developing, but um, I didn't even really understand yet what research was, and I didn't have a lot of one-on-one guidance on what I should be doing. So what I ended up doing was writing a manual on how their system worked, but I didn't really actually do any research. And then after I had that internship before my senior year, that led me to pick my senior project so that I was getting more robotics and controls experience. And that was really the bulk of my research experience in undergrad was my senior project. So even applying to grad school, I had very little research experience on my resume, which I was nervous about and thought that would put me at a disadvantage. But I think the background on what had brought me to that point of like exploring different things, realizing I didn't like it, finding something I liked, and then deciding to really go full into that showed to the people who were viewing my application that I would do research and I was comfortable putting myself in situations where I don't know everything. And so I think that that was, yeah, I think that that was what kind of gave me my research experience in a way.